What's up, everyone? This is going to be part 2 of the sprinting and plyos as a strength athlete series. And I wanted to make this series because I'm a strength athlete that learned a lot of this the hard way. And I know a lot of strength athletes that want to implement sprinting and plyos into their training, but maybe are hesitant because you're on a dedicated program, you have competitions on the horizon, and at the end of the day, you want this stuff to enhance your training, not hurt it. So the general takeaway from part 1 was avoiding sharp increases in intensity in order to stay healthy, because tendon adaptations are slow and tendon injuries heal slowly. So the strategy is, how can I accrue plyometric ground contacts consistently over time? And we do this by first classifying intensity of movements on a 1 to 10 scale, with things like depth jumps and max velocity sprinting as a 10. And soft pogos would be a 1, but sequential pogos for height might go up to, let's say, like a 5 or 6. But don't become obsessed over these numbers. Just use them for a general assessment where you can quantify your workload based on the number of reps you do times this relative intensity value. You also want to identify tendencies of soreness specifically for you, because everyone's going to react differently to the stimulus. One person might be prone to shin splints, whereas another might battle quad tendon issues. So you want to target those tendencies with proactive work using the guidelines from part 1. So over time, you accrue volume with these gradual increases in workload to build tissue tolerance while doing a variety of movements. So things like deep tier, single leg, ground contact time emphasis, height emphasis, and absorption emphasis like altitude drops. And when it comes to sprinting, using resistance and hills can actually be less fatiguing because it's so much easier to decelerate. However, your biggest focus with sprinting, assuming you want to get faster and more technically sound, is going to be drills. So learn how to A skip, learn how to B skip, learn ankling drills, get good at them. It takes time. When I was starting out, I would do A skips in my kitchen, on my patio, for my warm-ups in the gym. You just need to find opportunities to practice every day because it's a rhythm drill and you're not going to be good at it right off the bat. All the while, focus on technique. Watch videos of high caliber athletes moving. Think according to angles, joint angles, body angles. Think about timing and rhythm. Your arms are pendulums. Think about where they should be swinging at certain points in a movement in order to be efficient. I'm essentially talking about your coach's eye. Look at your own footage, compare, make adjustments, ask other people what they think. Okay, so with all that said, I'm going to rattle off what I think would be a pretty good starting point. You can copy this exact program, just add it into your normal training, because none of this is going to be fatiguing relative to your actual strength work. So 3 or 4 days per week at the start of your session after you've warmed up, do this. Do 3 sets of 10 soft pogos where you just focus on your balance, landing in the same spot, keeping your arms moving in an organized fashion. Dorsiflex your toes in the air. Then pick like 1 or 2 of the following exercises as your main work. So a really good one is just a hands on hips CMJ, which is a standing vertical jump without your arms. Start out doing singles of these, so maybe 5 to 8 total reps. And after a few weeks, you can begin to do sequential jumps up to like 3 at a time. You can also start doing some depth drops from a pretty easy height, around like 2 or 3 feet. And you can start out with multiple in a set, so maybe like a 3x3, and you want to focus on decelerating quickly. You don't want to jolt your body, but think about turning on your quad and glute muscles fast as if you were preparing to take a hit as soon as you land. You also want to experiment with some like squatted plyos, which are really chill. You just get down a low squatted position and do pogos in that manner. And you also want to work on your skips. You want to start with A marches and just be deliberate about your timing, your rhythm, and you want to try out full A skips when you get the chance, and just don't get frustrated if you can't figure it out right away because it takes time. From there, you can add a few more sets each week and then another low intensity exercise, or modify a current exercise such as doing pogos for height, or with your drop jumps. Ultimately, you can transition those to a depth jump. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you overdo it, you have to take a break and then you just screwed yourself, because as I mentioned before, tendon adaptations take a long time and so does tendon recovery. So be smart, be patient, and don't get greedy. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. In part 3, I'm going to talk about how to really progress plyometrics, some of the more advanced movements you can do, and some of the ways that you can measure your progress. Peace.